Good evening, Jamie.
Hey, Chad.
It's Tuesday night, so we're here with Paranormal Lens. We are part of Jotnik's Paranormal. We are trying some new stuff tonight. We have a new streaming service, so there's some things that Jamie and I are trying to figure out on the back end. So we are going to hope that it all goes well.
Is this thing on? Hello.
Well, we're getting comments, so that's a good start. So,
Yeah, that's good. Yes.
so look at
We had a
that.
moment. We had a moment before the go button got hit. So fingers crossed, toes crossed. Here we are. So cool. Hi, Jenny. Hey, Todd and Carmela. Marie. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining.
So anyway.
All right.
Actually, we can tell that Jenny posted a day ago, so that's interesting.
Well, look at that.
So,
all right.
So anyway,
hi, Brittany.
So Jamie, what's going on? How was your weekend? What did you do anything?
You know, welcome to adulthood, right? Everything's a blur when you have days off. I know we did stuff on Saturday. Sunday was a birthday party, maybe.
I think so. Yeah,
I think I saw you there. Zoe turned 18, so congratulations, happy birthday, Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
It's all downhill from here, but whatever. I'm kidding. But getting everybody together, the family gang, and all fun stuff that happened there. So that was cool.
Yep.
It was really cool.
Yep.
And the collage of birthday pictures was my highlight. Seeing from 0 to now, 1 to now, that was really cool. So
yeah,
how far we've come.
So yeah, Steph did a nice job on that one.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
So I was at the what was I at? The Alba Twitch Festival for a little bit on Saturday. Got to see some people. Got to see Bert and Heather and their kids. So that was nice. Yeah. So.
Cool. Oh, I went to the Ren Fair. That's what I did Saturday with them. So
exactly,
it was Time Travelers Weekend, and it was the Doctor Who theme for M and many other time travelers for other folks. Some did not make sense at all. But the highlight, I can tell you this: there were about 5 guys dressed as Darth Maul from Star Wars Episode 1 and some other animated Star Wars stuff. And one of the actors of the fair asked them about the Rebels, and they one of the guys said, "We don't like Rebels, but we like Red Bulls. Do you have any?" And it was perfectly cued. So it was fun.
That's cool.
But good crowd, a lot of fun. The Ren Fair is a great thing to do, and it was worth the time. So
yeah. Like I said, Heather and Bert were at the Alba Twitch Festival. Heather says Alba Twitch Festival was a good time. So it's always good to see people in that environment and just, out being themselves. And
it's nice to see people in daylight.
It's that too.
Right. We walk around in the dark a lot, so that's pretty cool. You're right. I agree with you though, and it's out of place too, because there's not like a location around us. The park at the river park is really nice. It was a beautiful day Saturday, so everybody was there. Sure. Yeah. So it's really cool. And the Alba Twitch Festival is a really well run event. So I'm glad you all had a good time.
So hopefully next year we can get you there, and maybe we'll have a table for Paranormal Lens, and
sure,
we'll see. So
can do.
But we're not here to talk about the Alba Twitch. We're here to talk about something else. I did a little bit of research. I did a little research this weekend. Talked to this past week. Talked to a guy named Andy Prost, who is one of the people who runs Wilson Castle. Great guy. I can't wait till you guys meet him. And he invited me to come up and, since I can't make it with a group, come up and just go through the castle. I'm looking really forward to it. But anyway, let's get into what I figured out, and then we'll talk about it. And yep, Bert's got it here, Wilson Castle. So
I think you're missing one exclamation point there, Bert, but I'll allow it.
So anyway, what I found out about Wilson Castle, it's located in Proctor, Vermont. And the castle was at one point part of a 115-acre estate. The estate included cattle barns, stable, a carriage house, a greenhouse, a conservatory, an aviary, things like that, along with a handful of other buildings. So when it was complete, the castle had 32 rooms over 3 floors, and it added up to over 13,000 square feet. It boasted 13 fireplaces that had imported tile surrounds and bronze fixtures. The windows included 84 stained glass windows.
Wow.
The facade of the castle has 2 turrets, a parapet, balconies. They're all set among 19 arches. So just a gorgeous building. The outside of the castle was constructed of English brick and French marble. It must have been a sight to see when it was finished. So this all began after Dr. John Johnson and his wife Sarah Robbins Johnson returned to Vermont. Dr. Johnson was a native from Vermont who had moved to London to study, as one of the sources called it, dubious medical practices. It was during this time that Dr. Johnson met a patient named Sarah Robbins. Robbins was the daughter of a wealthy aristocrat, and it wasn't long before the two were married and moved back to Vermont. Construction began in 1885 on the castle, and according to the Only in Vermont website, Johnson hired at least 2 English architects to design the castle and its outbuildings. The planning and construction phases took about 7.5 years. At the time, the cost was $1.3 million, which would be roughly around $50 million today.
Yeah.
You would think that Dr. Johnson must have been a well-liked doctor who had an established practice and was financially set, right? Fair assumption with building something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so, right?
Well, not so.
Okay.
That's where the story takes a slight turn. Dr. Johnson was none of those things. He was a greedy man, and he built
Was he a
this
doctor, though?
What's that?
Was he a real doctor?
Well, they said he studied dubious medical practices. So,
because there's like Dr. Evil,
right. So anyway, like I said, was saying he was a greedy man, and he built this magnificent castle with the money that he swindled, mostly from Sarah's family. The locals didn't like him. If you remember from my description of the house, most of the materials were imported and nothing local was used. Now, the Johnsons only lived in the house a very short time. I believe it was 5 to 6 years. They had 2 children, but one of them died at the age of 6 months from spinal meningitis. This was 5 years before the castle was complete. As you can imagine, a castle takes money to keep it running, and even in the late 1800s, the operating costs were high for an estate of this magnitude. It turns out that Sarah's parents eventually had enough of funding this endeavor that their son-in-law had started. They closed the purse strings and cut him off completely. When the money ran out, Dr. Johnson disappeared. Sarah moved back to England, and eventually the property was sold for $50,000.
I thought you were going to say $1 million.
Nope. $50,000. That's 26 times. I mean, it was worth 26 times more than that. I mean,
Right.
that's unbelievable. Somebody got an amazing deal.
Yep. Now, somebody had to do a lot of dusting, though, too. So
This is true. Now, the history between when the Johnson family left and when 1939 is very murky. Talking to Andy, they didn't have much information, and I'd like to do some digging into it and see if I can find anything. But I'm sure better people than me have, and they haven't come up with anything. But one source cited that it was sold 16 times in those years. Though, like I said, I haven't been able to verify that number. The same source suggested that it was used as an administration building and dormitory for a cosmetology school. Now, my favorite story about this time period comes from Andy. He recounted to me that in their research, they found out that it was lost in a poker hand in 1918. Now, that must have been one high-stakes game.
Well, again, a lot of dusting, so maybe not. Maybe not.
Sure. Through this time, the house saw its share of tragedy, grief, and turmoil. Now, that all began to change in 1939. Herbert Lee Wilson was an AM radio pioneer that had built radio stations all over the world. In 1939, he was looking for a place to build a new station and a summer home for his family that would be close to the station. He came across the castle, which was being sold by the town of Proctor in a tax sale. Mr. Wilson purchased the property for a sum of $12,000, which covered the back taxes. Now, I'm sure at that point the property needed some major work, but it was still the best deal around. Today, that would be around $250,000. And Jamie, you know what $250,000 gets you right now.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot.
I very well do, yeah.
So it was at this point that things began to change at Wilson Castle. Wilson continued to work in the private radio field for another 2 years until 1941. With the start of World War II, Wilson joined the Army Signal Corps, which makes sense with his radio background. He remained with the Corps until he retired with the rank of colonel in the 1950s. He and his family lived in the castle peacefully for years. It was finally a place of love. He had purchased antiques and artifacts from all over the world. According to a report posted by Matt Henson of WCAX-TV, Colonel Wilson noticed that people were starting to come by and look in the windows to see what was inside. He said, since they are here, why not charge them to see what's inside? It was then, in 1962, that tours officially began. Colonel Wilson passed away in 1981 at the age of 82. The house has remained in the family ever since. The colonel's daughter, Blossom Devine Ladabouche, inherited the house. Blossom passed away in 2010 and left the house to her daughter, Denise Devine. Denise currently owns the house and is still actively involved in the ongoing work, restoration, and day-to-day operations of the house. So that's the history, which is kind of short, but this house hasn't been through a lot other than these families. The family spent a lot of time there, but there hasn't been a lot of exchanges and changes and things like that, which is sort of interesting in a house this old.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed earlier. The original build date, it was when?
They started in 1880. 1885.
I'm asking you to scroll up. I'm sorry, not down. I apologize. I should have caught that earlier. But I'm saying it's 140-ish years then, 35
Right.
years, something like that. That is a long history, in the sense of American stuff. It's not the oldest by any means, but it's certainly
Right.
not new. And
Right.
we we were talking about there with like 12 owners in a window of time, and some rapid transitions. The curiosity would be those people, that situational change, why that many turnovers happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming I would have to imagine it's maintenance, and I joke about dusting, but
Right.
it's needed in any house, much less one size.
There were things. There were there were some articles that talked about Johnson's Follies. I think he ended up selling a lot of the furniture, the fixtures. Like, I think a lot of it was sold,
Okay,
just to try to keep things going as long as he could. And his staff apparently made off with a lot of stuff because I'm sure they weren't being paid, things like that. And again, now I'm making some assumptions here. I don't quote me as this is history, but there was.
Chad Thomas said absolutely. We have it on tape.
So anyway,
Yes, that's fair.
There's but again, there was only a couple paragraphs on the history. There's just not a lot of details and changes, which is good, I think. So,
well, we expect, and I know I'm getting a little ahead of this, but we expect with locations that have paranormal activity to have some tragedy, right? Some trauma, some drama, that kind of stuff as part of the build up to it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be so, because
right.
I mean, that's an assumption, and it's probably a stereotype for that matter too.
True. Now there was a little bit, he was a greedy man, so there was some drama, there, and I don't know that they were living in the castle when the 6-month-old died, but there was some family grief, but yeah, not a ton. So
Hey, here's a really good segue. Todd and Carmela asked, "Are there paranormal stories aside from the history?"
there might be a few.
Maybe.
So I'm guessing you guys want to know if it's haunted or not.
Oh, I thought we were done. Oh.
No, not yet, Jamie. Got a little bit more. So
please do tell.
So the haunted history of the castle goes back to at least the 1970s. So the story is that guests would stop a tour guide and say, "Hey, we just saw a woman looking out that window. Who is she?" Colonel Wilson instructed the tour guides to redirect the guests and tell them of a rumored secret passage in the castle. This passage has never been found, so was he telling them a fib to make them forget about what they saw? The colonel lived there 9 months out of the year because it was a summer home. It had fireplaces and stuff like that to heat, but it didn't have a heating and cooling system. So he lived there for 9 months out of the year, and he didn't want anything to do with the stories of ghosts. He was afraid that the guests would be scared away. Believe it or not, it wasn't until 2020 that a paranormal investigation was permitted at Wilson Castle. So we're talking recent history, 4 years ago.
Sure.
Now, if I have my story correct, it was in 2020 that the South Glen Falls Paranormal Society finally convinced the castle staff to let them investigate. They invited the staff to join them, and that night was the beginning of something great for the castle. Now, I mentioned earlier that I got a chance to talk to Andy Probst from Wilson Castle. Andy grew up around the castle, and he has always felt comfortable there. His parents worked for Denise, the current owner. Denise is his godmother and best friend. Denise grew up in the house, but if you want somebody to talk to about the history of the castle, Andy is your guy. He was the one who shared much of the history tonight, as well as some of the haunted information I have. Andy told me that the experiences that investigators have are pretty much the same week to week, which is, that's good. That's a normal thing. Okay. The spirits that people tend to encounter are Lady Johnson. This is Sarah, and she is typically seen in her room looking out the window. She seems to love people and really enjoys when people come to investigate. I believe Dr. Johnson may be there also, but he doesn't like the attention, which doesn't surprise me. Colonel Wilson can also be seen at the castle. If you get a chance to talk to him, he loves the guests visiting. He is happy with the restoration that is happening and likes talking about radio. So I would love to see what would happen if Ron and Lourdes would go there and see what they could get into.
I was just thinking the same thing.
So when I talked to Andy, we didn't go much about his experiences at the castle, but I found some local newspaper articles. And in these articles, he and Denise shared some experiences that they had. In this article from The Reporter, a newspaper from Middlebury, Vermont, they share some experiences. This experience, I think, was from 2009 after Denise's mom passed. "My siblings weren't interested in keeping the place," said Denise. "They loved it, but they didn't have the passion for it that I did. But it's a money pit, and I wasn't always sure I was going to be able to afford it. Once, I asked my late mother for help deciding whether to keep it. I said, 'Mom, can you give me a yes?' And the dinner bell rang twice." Denise then understood that she wasn't alone in the castle after all. I think that's a pretty good sign that your mom's saying, "You better stay here."
Yep.
So, apparently Denise still likes to take time to talk to her mother from time to time. Now, here are some other accounts that they have experienced. They will hear music and distant voices. I mean, if you've seen any of the pictures, there are some grand ballrooms and things like that, pianos, organs. So they would hear music and distant voices. At one point, there was furniture being dragged on the third floor, but Denise and Andy knew that the third floor was locked. They went up and they confirmed that the door was locked and nothing was moved, but they had heard the furniture moving around. At one point, a vacuum cleaner turned on, and Denise interpreted this as her grandfather telling her it was time to get to work. Apparently, when you guys go, you should take cameras and take pictures, because one thing that happens quite often is people will appear in pictures that aren't there. So most often this happens in the pink room, which was Denise's mother's room and Lady Johnson's room. In one photo, there is somebody who looks like Denise's late brother, Chris. Another photo shows a woman with a hairstyle that's like from the 1890s. And another photo shows a little boy standing in a doorway wearing breeches. So definitely take a camera, take some pictures. That'll be interesting to see what you get.
Got it.
So there's a lot of evidence that other groups have shared online, but I don't want, I hesitate to dig into other people's evidence and share it because it's not stuff that we've been part of and we understand how it was collected. So, but I do encourage you to get out there and find it and see what you can come up with, and look at it yourselves. Jamie, this is one of those stories that makes me happy. The paranormal and history have come together into something wonderful. We have talked about several places where the paranormal has been locked out for one reason or another. In this case, the paranormal has sparked interest in the castle and is bringing people there. Andy told me that in 2017 and 18, they were ready to give up. They were at the point where they were saying, what can we sell next to keep the doors open? We know that taxes, utilities, regular maintenance are expensive for a property this size, and that doesn't include restoration costs. Currently, the property is the castle and 9 other buildings. Some of the acreage has been sold off over the years, and I believe most recently 70 acres were sold to a maple sugar farm. Being in Vermont, that sort of makes
Vermont, sense. Yeah.
It's everywhere. Right. It's in the foothills of the mountains, so it's like at the base of a mountain. So I mean that makes sense to me.
Yep.
If I heard correctly, I think there's about 50 acres left, but I could be wrong on that. Okay. This is all taken care of by Denise, Andy, a maintenance person, a tour guide, and a volunteer. So 5 people doing a lot of work.
It's a lot of swiffing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funding that keeps the doors open comes from tours, paranormal investigations, weddings, and other small events. The paranormal investigations have kept the doors open and fast-tracked renovations. Andy said there's been more work done in the last 4 years than the previous 20. I asked, that's just an amazing thing. So, yeah. I asked Andy if they were going to keep on with the paranormal, and he said yes. He likes seeing the younger people come in for the ghosts, but then stay for the architecture. And they've become great friends with many of the investigators that have come through. The castle is open from mid-May through the beginning of November. They have history tours 5 days a week. And in September and October, which we're in the middle of that season right now, they have candlelight tours on select nights. Recently, they hosted a Witches of Wilson Castle event with about 100 witches participating, making potions and casting spells. As I said earlier, they will also host weddings. So for more information on paranormal investigations, check out their website, which is www.wilsoncastle.com. So as I wrap this up, I want to share another clip from the newspaper article that I found. This was in the September 21st, 2024 edition of the Municipal. Visitors can also buy a piece of Wilson Castle's history to take home, but be warned, some buyers have returned their purchases, believing them to be haunted. Should this occur, contact the castle and tell them about the experience. They will pay for the return postage. So before we get into discussions, I want to share some of my sources. Obviously, Andy was one of my big sources. Right. WilsonCastle.com. And I'll post these in the chat. TheMunicipal.com, WCAX.com, OnlyInYourState.com, and TheBrandonReporter.com. So, what do you think, Jamie?
Well, welcome to Vermont, first of all. Like this fits perfectly, into the very cool, laid back lifestyle out there. Yeah, and I say this because I've been there many times. It's a summer vacation spot for me over several years. So, and I've been around the castle, but it's never to it.
Okay.
Location, the Proctor's, kind of on the way up kind of thing. Especially on being on the west side of the state, and you're coming up from our area, you kind of pass through the area to get anywhere else, like up to Burlington or up to the top end of the state off to the east is called the Northeast Kingdom. That tells you everything, right?
Right.
But Killington's not too far away and some other stuff. So there is a big difference between Vermont in the summer and the winter as well. And I understand why there's closure in November to April or so, whatever it was.
Okay.
It is cold and it's snowy, and it's as much as it costs to keep the place cool in the summer. I'm sure it's twice as much in the winter to keep it warm. So I get it.
Okay.
But as far as the activity and the interest in the place, it doesn't surprise me. I think Bert added a comment back here a while ago. Let me see if I can scroll up. Here it is. Sometimes it's just the love of the location that keeps them there, as far as
Mhm.
the presence of a paranormal activity or a spirit or whatnot. And I can understand that. I grew up in a very old house. I love that place. And I still think fondly of it. And I haven't lived there in 30 years, so
Right.
you know I certainly understand that, and I want to believe that you have that choice at some point to come back to that place you love
Right.
and you're happy at. And there's certainly benevolent spirits there. There's nothing's trying to cause harm or scare folks out. So it seems like it's that warm welcome feel, which that's home.
Right.
You're welcome people to your house. So um, yeah, maybe they think if they invite folks to come in, they'll help them dust. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm going to stop. I promise. It's just, how many rooms is that again? Holy, jeez.
I think it was
Nah,
33 rooms. So,
holy cow.
and I only had a handful of pictures. Obviously,
Right.
um,
Well, and all the outbuildings too. I mean, there's just a lot going on there.
mhm.
That's incredible.
And I hope they have the pledge to keep the orbs down, Jamie.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's true. Where's Dave Dare Meaty when we need him?
So Todd has a question. Todd, I have a question.
Yeah.
Have either of you been to Wilson Castle?
No,
No.
not yet. Anyway,
Okay.
and I can tell you, and you've seen in the chat here, Bert and Heather Lynch, Albert Lynch is Bert for short. They are part of oh my gosh, Southern End Paranormal here in Pennsylvania. I almost drew a blank on that. And they have booked a trip in July.
July. Yep.
Early July, and I'm allowed to go. so so far until I say something stupid here and I get booted off the team. There's a couple of us through Jotnick's Paranormal that are going to be able to go as well. So we won't make it happen in the summer, but not yet. I've been, as I said earlier, I've been nearby, but not quite enough
Mhm.
to stop or stay.
Yep. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join that trip, as far as I know, because that's the week that I do my volunteer at summer camp is the week before that. So I'm going to be exhausted getting home Friday and then driving up for a Saturday in Vermont, I think is pushing it a little bit. So,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I'll have to find something to do with a dog for an extra day, which just wouldn't go over well. So, but one of these days, like Andy said, anytime I want to come up, I should just come up and figure something out. So
That's the hospitality of New England and Vermont
mhm.
specifically. It's just everything's warm and welcoming, and we'll figure it out. Just it's like
Yep.
grandma's house. Just come on over.
Mhm.
There's dinner. We'll figure
and
it out.
and they were thrilled that we were going to be sharing information about them. I hope I did them justice on this. I'm sure Andy's going to be catching it at some point. So Andy, thank you for your information. Like I said, I hope
Thank
I
you.
did it justice. Um,
Well, that's the difference. We do these episodes every week, and we both have our tasks. For the episode that we're hosting. And it's rare unless it's something local to us or someplace we've been connected to have a whole lot of insight directly from the source.
right.
And there's a lot of information in the world, right? That's what the internet's for, and that helps immensely. But the personal story, the personal experience, the personal passion, that's probably the right way to say it, the passion of a person like Andy at a place who's been there for a lifetime, and is deeply connected, that goes so much further to really getting the gist of the thing that you're talking about, in the
Hmm.
place in this case.
Yep.
It matters, and you love that because I can't replicate that. It's not my place.
No.
I could talk to you about Booby's Brewery immensely, and I get passionate there because that's my place.
Right.
That we get to go to and do all the time. But or the Hollywood Mansion before,
Right.
but the other places, we're passers through.
Mm-hmm.
We go to a place to investigate. We're there for the day. Yeah, we're day trippers, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yep.
And we're just not as connected. Now we have some places that and I both have a second home, right, in White Hill,
Yep.
right? But to get there is irregular, where we have a regular gig here in South Central PA, Mount Joy, Boobies. So um, I really appreciate Andy for his insights, and it matters a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing that Andy shared is there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Mm.
And he's like, when I was messaging him, he's like, please call me so I can. He's like, I don't have time to write stuff down, but please call me so we can talk about it. Because one story that I've read multiple places was that Lady Johnson died in the house, and because of that, um, her Dr. Johnson was heartbroken and like went downhill there. And that is not the story. It was the money got cut off, and that. So there, it's just interesting how there's different twists on things like that. But he was very adamant that there's a lot of fallacies out there, and that's why I wanted to use articles that I know that they had been quoted in. So I tried to stay away from some of the other things that are, everybody uses Wikipedia just to at least find some information out and then go out from there and find more information out. But I didn't even feel safe doing that because of not wanting to get misinformation.
Right.
So,
It matters, and that's the reputation of a place too.
right.
When you have false documentation, for lack of a better way of saying, I guess, but whatever that is, the false information, that sets you up as an investigator then, and I think we're both safe to say that we don't have a predisposition to look at stuff, much in advance. I mean, that's not my place for it. If
Right.
there's a day tour before going to a place, I'll go do that. We did that for West Virginia, a few other things we've done on our road trip world, but I don't really want to know a whole lot in advance because
Right.
it sets that predisposition of what to expect that evening. And um,
Which is the
we've
other
said this
reason
so many times. Go ahead.
yeah. It's the other reason I didn't want to dig too far into the hauntings here, because I didn't, I know most of our team doesn't like to know that information. So,
Right. Yeah. It's just, you don't know who you're dealing with. I mean, and if you start to assume it's someone, then, and you're wrong, then, it's the same as somebody keeps calling you by the wrong name, you
mhm.
know, you're just like, okay, you're not interested in, you're not
Right.
invested in me, and I'm just going to go. So
So,
bye-bye.
yep. Todd and Carmel had a question here from talking with Andy. Did he say there is one type of activity that is prevalent? He didn't really go too much into that, other than saying that he didn't talk about whether it's flashlights or K2s or anything like that. We didn't go down that road, but he just shared that those are the people who are typically there communicating. Was the Colonel and Lady Johnson are the two big ones. So,
Okay.
so yeah, Frankie, it sounds like is the it sounds like the castle is just amazing. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So
Me
at some
too.
point. Bert, any particular area? The pink room, which was, like I said, Lady Johnson's room, and the mother. So
I'd have to imagine that they ran out of colors with 33 rooms.
there, there's a lot of ornate woodwork in some of those rooms. So they would
Oh
all
yeah,
just
you could tell. Well, you could tell that, and that's the other. You mentioned it in the comments about coming for the paranormal, but also being interested in the architecture. This is one of those era places that you can't build today.
right,
Because of the ornateness. The stained glass alone is exorbitant now.
right,
But the detailed trim and all the woodwork and all the panel, and
right.
it's just you don't build places like this. And
It
it's amazing
it may
to be able
be,
to step into it.
yeah, $1.3 million today translates to $50 million cash,
Cash, yeah.
but that doesn't translate to the same cost of building that structure today. I
The
think,
quality of build it is as
right,
well. Yeah,
yeah,
there's nothing in there that's laminate. There's nothing in there that's any kind of less than solid wood material
right.
or real tile work or anything. I mean, it's all. genuine.
Some of those fireplaces, the pictures that I saw just are so ornate
Yep.
and gorgeous.
Oh, look,
Brett
Bert loves wood.
woodwork.
Oh, woodwork. I'm sorry. Sorry. My bad.
So yeah, you guys are gonna have a great trip. So
I'm really looking forward to this.
yeah. So any other thoughts or questions that you can come up with offhand?
I don't, but I will in like 2 minutes. So like how it always goes.
Mhm.
The thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah.
And we knew this trip was planned. And you brought it in. Because you kind of stole it from me because I was thinking, okay, we'll swing into it in the spring. In
Uh,
advance, sometime early summer before going. Um, but it really does help to set the stage for it. And
right.
the thing that we all can do, and when I say, oh, we all can, it's not fair to say that way, but the one thing that, if you have the ability to do, is at minimal get there and take a tour, see the place, self-support it. The paranormal obviously has a different cost than a day tour, the visitors kind of thing.
Mhm.
But even there, if you get a chance to book the place, do so. All of these older historical properties have the need of us to get there,
Yep.
and many are in worse shape than Wilson is, just by looking at what we saw here. We know that from Whitehill and quite a few other places, but there is such a reliance on the paranormal, and it's important because we're trying to do something to preserve something there too, and to capture and promote that place. And it all just moves to the right direction of keeping the doors open, the lights on, the heat running, the air on, whatever it may be. You know, it could be a well-established place like Selma, and just we talked about a couple weeks ago. You know, our ability to do this there matters, and the fact that we're being good stewards, as most paranormal investigators are, of the place and the the reputation that it has.
Mhm.
The more we can do to help promote and preserve it, the more it'll be there for all of us in the
True.
long run.
Yep.
I think that's a cool thing.
Yep. Frankie says buy some of their maple syrup. It's got a cool little gift shop. So
I'm telling you, in the summertime, all they got to do is get a soft serve machine, put a little maple in there. You've not lived until you had a maple smoothie. And that's ice cream soft service smoothie up there. But oh my gosh, it is so good, Chad.
uh,
I will try to find you some and bring it back in a cup.
okay, sounds great. Now Heather did say, and we talked about this earlier offline with Heather. You have last minute until joining to join us because I think it's so much for the base investigation, but then there's
It's
really
a per head count after.
per head
Yeah.
count after that, and with 33 rooms and that much space, I think it can spread out a little bit and
Yeah.
not interfere with each other. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll just jump in your car and fall asleep for 8 hours, Jamie.
You wouldn't It wouldn't be the first time that an investigator and I drove and he slept and I drove. So
Uh-huh.
um,
So
Matt, our trip up to Hinsdale,
yeah,
our trip home, I should say, from Hinsdale. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So
Just
we'll
remember, I have seat warmers, sir, and I will turn them on as soon as you fall asleep.
in the middle of the summer.
Yep.
So
Doing it.
so anyway, we'll see how it goes.
Very good.
But yeah, at some point, I definitely want to. I hate to say this, but I've never been to Vermont, so I need to get up there and just experience Vermont itself, and then hit the castle while I'm there. So storm
Yeah.
the castle.
We can hit that, and like 45 minutes to the east is Lake Champlain. We can go look for Champ while we're there, right?
Yeah, would that be a road trip, Jamie?
Yeah, it would
So,
be a road trip because we drive.
uh, so anyway,
And Vermont in the summer, I'm telling you, I go there all the time. It can't beat it. It is gorgeous. Where it is 80 something here, it is 70 something there. The mountains are beautiful. You're an outdoorsy guy,
Mhm.
it's hiking, all the stuff that you can do, and just a neat place.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
highly recommend it.
I could spend 8 hours in that house with just my camera, just taking
Oh
pictures
yeah,
of the building itself. So
very true.
yeah.
Perhaps you could be their historian or document guy. There's a word for that. Documenter,
Yes,
doctor,
yeah, one of those
mentor.
words.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
any other thoughts before
Um,
we?
I, Yeah, I just want to slide up a little bit in the comments and say hello to some folks that joined in. Valerie, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And Ed Flanagan, nice to see you, sir. Welcome. Thanks, first time listener. Hopefully not last time listener. So welcome. And I think that was everybody. It came in after we said hello to everyone else. So yeah.
Oh, and we had
And,
Frankie. We called him out.
Frankie, well, thank you. I'm sorry, we were chatting with some of the comments. I
Yeah.
apologize, missed you. Um, so thanks guys. Thanks for joining in on this and a lot of lively conversation as well. We really appreciate that. Um, is anybody in the conversation with us tonight? Has anybody been there as well? I think that's an interesting thing, and your spin perhaps too of your take on it, how you experienced it.
Well, I think Brittany Rose said that.
Brittany, okay, I see that making plans. I didn't catch the other part.
Well, that was Marie
Marie,
was
okay.
making plans, but Brittany's going to be there next week, actually.
So Frankie has been there. Cool.
So yeah, definitely.
All right, and Todd and Carmela is on the list. All right. I've yet to see. Maybe I missed this. I'm. It's fun while we're doing this stuff. You'd think we know what we're doing by now after a year and a half. But I tend to listen and pay attention to Chad because he has that voice you can just listen to, and forget to look at the comments, and then these kind of scroll along as we go. So I'm trying to catch up. I apologize. But in that, I missed a few there. So no one that I noticed here as I quickly scrolled up road trip that I see. So you guys are slacking.
we called it out though.
It's usually happened. Well, it's in the comments by now though too. So
that's true.
All right. This is literally one we could road trip to.
Yeah.
Next week we probably won't. So.
Well, is that a transition, Jamie?
It could be. You're good. I'm good if you're good. So
I'm good. I'm going to hit the transition button because we have a new button now.
I see that. I don't know how any of these buttons work. So, all right. So let's move along to talk about what we're going to do the next couple of weeks. So the next week we are going far, far, far away. There was a road trip. Thank you, Heather. It is a road trip. You're right. But next week we are not road tripping. We are going to Yemen, all the way over in
wow,
yeah, in the Middle East, to the Well of Barhut, and it is a place that has been considered one of the most cursed places in the world at one point. And then, of course, reputation grows from there. So hopefully I have some interesting things to share. And coming out of that to the 22nd, we will have a special guest, Daryl Marston, him from A&E's Ghost Hunters and a few other endeavors. He will be joining us in a post-investigation wrap-up of our spooktacular event at Booby's Brewery on the 19th of October.
Mm-hmm.
And he will also, that night, we're joined also by Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez from Staticom. They will be coming with us on the 29th, and hopefully a little time given there for some evidence review, see what we may have captured that night. But this is the first time that Staticom is going to be at Booby's Brewery. So we don't know what's going to happen. But I do know everywhere they go and everything I've seen so far, there's been plenty of good captures. So hopefully we will find some cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So more to come. Then coming back to us again on November 5th, the Mount Washington Hotel. That is Chad's episode. And I know nothing about I do know something about it, actually. I shouldn't say I don't know anything about it, but I don't know much. And then I'm going to tackle Rose Mackenberg, a person that worked with Harry Houdini for quite a while in trying to kind of separate facts from fiction in the paranormal field from some things that were going on. So she's quite an interesting individual. And then coming up on the 19th of November, Chad's going to tackle the Queen Mary. And then we're back to shapes and figures with a Great Lakes Triangle.
You can't get away from geometry involved, Jamie.
I know. We can't get away from triangles, no matter how hard we try, right? Anything else would be boring. But all you need, I said this earlier, all you need are 3 points to connect and it's spooky stuff in between. You got a triangle. Right?
Exactly.
So there we go for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll get December up as we go a little closer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And then,
so actually,
we're clicking too fast again. I'm sorry.
Frankie, have you been to Boobies before? I know Todd and Carmela, this will be your first time.
Yeah.
But Frankie, have you been there before? because I know you can't wait for it. So
Yeah. This one, the drive up Mount Washington scared the crap out of me too. Um, and it's interesting because on the up you're on the outside, right? So you're everything off to the right is a drop in a lot of ways. And the parkings are not, parking pull-ins are not nearly as close as you think they should be. Um, and there's traffic coming both ways, so you're trying to be wary of that narrow road and people, but also trying to see the real beauty that you're getting on this elevation. And Mount Washington is the highest point in New Hampshire. It's a private road, so you have to pass through a toll area and get a pass to get in. But once you're in, you're there for the whole day. And as you drive up, there are pull offs. I mean, it's the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain, so you can imagine there's some switchbacks and stuff. But a lot of cool vistas, a lot of neat places to pull over. If you're interested, you can bring a picnic lunch kind of thing and spend the day. Or as you get to the top, there's a restaurant, and there's actually a train that comes up, an old I forget what it's a certain kind of gauge or line, but it comes up through and it stops at the top, and you can get on and off there instead of driving up if you'd rather. But the cool thing, when you're done, you get this car climbed Mount Washington bumper sticker, which are exclusives because you can't get it unless you get in. So you can't just buy one at the store.
So,
and of course, at the bottom of the mountain when you come out, there's all kinds of stuff to buy, New England trinkets of things. So
you got to exit through the gift shop.
well, it's not even that. You can't, you just can't avoid the gift shop stuff. And there is a gift shop at the top as well.
Okay. So Frankie said this is going to be his first time at Boobies.
Oh, very cool.
And to transition into this, T-minus 11 days till they meet Jamie in person.
Woohoo! I'm keeping everything bubble wrapped just in case, 'cause last time we were trying to do this over at Red Mill, didn't work out so well for me. So I'm looking forward to this, guys. Absolutely. All right. Well, speaking of Boobies, the Spooktacular event is sold out. Has been for over a week now. So, if you're in, you're in. If you're not, we're going to do it again next year. I'm sure of that. It is a regular annual special event for us. So hold tight. We'll do more there. And there's possibly something in the spring, actually, too. We tried last year, but we didn't quite get there. So some more effort there, perhaps. But October 19th, shaping up to be a really fun evening for those coming. And we're so excited to be able to do this. So more to come on those 2 wrap-up episodes. Bert has this truck climb Mount Washington sticker. Okay, that's fair. And I saw this comment about not being able to see the road over the hood of your truck. I've seen your truck. It is quite large. So yeah, I can imagine the terror in that, especially that road is narrow and its turns are tight. So. Yeah. And people drive it like they do it all the time, right? When they're there. All right. So coming up for us outside of the Spooktacular event, we do have a public investigation this weekend on the 12th. There are still a few tickets left. It looks like about a dozen or so. And then the 19th is sold out. But we still have 2 other public investigations coming up to wrap up the year on November 16th and December 7th. It looks like tickets are still plenty available for either of those events. Yep. Keep in mind, guys, that if you are in the area and you can't make it to any of these events, or if you know someone who is a paranormal enthusiast who would be willing to come and hang out with us, there are gift cards and gift certificates available from the brewery to cover the cost of an investigation, and they make great Christmas presents. It's not too soon to start thinking about it, right? Yep. Tip from your Uncle Jamie here: start shopping now. Experience.
Private investigations are always better. You can sort of do your own thing. And
absolutely, private investigations are available. Just give us a contact.
And then stay in the hotel because you're
stay there and investigate all night, like literally. So it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Tickets to our events that are available at boobiesbrewery.com, and hope to see you soon. All right. And you found us here via either YouTube or TikTok, not TikTok, Facebook. The TikTok, by the way, not TikTok. But you found us on one of the 2 main sites for our live show. If you're going to catch us later, of course, there's all kinds of means for that: Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeart. Help me, Chad. I'm missing something.
Audible.
Audible, that's the one. The other A1, Apple Audible. Okay. So if you're catching this later, thank you so very much. Bear with us. We do this live. We do not practice in advance. This is us, and we appreciate you though. But there's other resources from Jotniks available on our Facebook page, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. And if you have something you want to share with us, whether it be a topic for an episode, a personal experience story that you'd like us to cover, feel free to shoot us an email at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. We will certainly be willing and able to jump in there.
Mm-hmm.
We have had lots of episodes on listener submission ideas and interests. So, we certainly are more than willing to do it. You saw the roster that's coming up. We can bump stuff. We self-produce, so we can do what we want.
Exactly.
Kind of anyway, kind of. But as far as the content, we certainly will be able to move stuff around and get things up in the front. So, feel free to give us a shout. And if you're watching later, leave a comment. We'd love to get some ideas of what how we're doing. Give us some information, some feedback. Drop us some stars if you can't leave comments. All that good stuff. So we really, really appreciate you guys. This doesn't happen, without y'all. And as much as we could sit here and do this by ourselves, we probably do anyway for as much time as we spend around each other. But it's so much more fun when y'all come along and give us all this excellent commentary and feedback. We really, really appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Yep. So, any final thoughts, Jamie?
Go to Wilson Castle. Let's do it. Right?
Yep.
I'm in. I'm so looking forward to July. There is. I'm going to tell you this though. There is one thing between then and now that is as interesting and exciting for me. We have a trip to Tala planned, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in April. I'm hoping I don't blow my budget between these two things, not be able to do anything else this year, because y'all know who investigate in the field. The paranormal stuff is crazy expensive, right?
Yeah.
Between places and stays and all the traveling and all that stuff, but it is so worth it when you can get there. So get out and investigate, y'all. Yep. Pretty cool.
Well, Murray, when you go, let us know what your experiences were.
Absolutely. And for all you guys, let us know where you're at. We're always, it's exciting. We all have stories and interests to share. So that's part of this whole conversation, this Discord we have, it's all about investigating. So let's look into it.
So Frankie's going to Tala in May.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Heather's really looking forward to that. So
Perfect. All right, y'all. Okay. Here we are at the end of another one. So last thoughts for you, Chad? This was your topic. So
no, I enjoyed it. It was interesting, and like I said, I can't wait till I can get there. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting. So,
all right. Well, again, there is room.
So
for the July trip. So we'll see what we can do. If I have to drive you, I will. Okay. I have to.
So we'll see.
You're just gonna have to, listen to podcasts with me.
That's all right.
So. Oh, who knew? Who knew?
Heather, I'm not sure if you're talking about Tala or not, but I'm not going on that one either. I don't think. So anyway.
Okay. Well, here we are. So,
all right, Jamie. Well, thank you everybody
for
tuning in. We will see you next week. Jamie's got another interesting episode coming up, and it looks like we're going to be back on this platform, Jamie, because it seemed to go okay.
It worked. That's the most important part. So. I'm not going to lie to you guys. When we were in this, we were here before this all starts, and we were like, and I'm trying to walk through like where everything is and what you can't see, and I'm like, okay, what if I do this or whatever's that? And the first thing, the audio didn't work, and I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. And then it started, and we're like, and we could see each other, like we couldn't really before with the other server, and we're like, it's working. This is so cool. So. It's the joy. It's the joy of things when it works right. If it was crashed and burned, we'd have probably been both very upset and sad sack. But
it works. So
yes. So
well,
on to the next episode.
So we're going to roll the end, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.